So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to light a room where there is no natural light, no ambient light coming in. Even though there was overhead lighting available, I decided to run with lights off because that is my thing. I love to shoot with lights off. And I'm going to show you how using a reflector can give you a natural looking and evenly lit room where it doesn't look flashy at all. So let me take you into Lightroom right now. I'm going to show you how I did this. Alright, so here is our, what would be our ambient shot, but this is our main behind the camera flash pop. And if you can see, and this is a good teaching tutorial right here, if you can see in the reflection, you can see that I'm holding up my 8600 using a big reflector, and I'm actually not even in the room. Okay, so there was a doorway right here, and I just took that 8600 and popped that flash and shot that flash back into the room. Now this standing alone, yes, it looks very flashy. We couldn't just use this by itself, but when we go to this side of the room, now actually I decided to use, and you can see the reflector in my hand right here, and I actually use the white side of it majority of the time. But I'm just bouncing off this wall because it is a kind of a cream color wall, and it wasn't going to create any color cast. But when we do that same thing on this side, and then we're going to blend them into Photoshop, I'm going to show you how making this image look like there's natural light coming in. So let's do this. I've already done all my preset bumps. If you really are unfamiliar with how to do that, make sure you watch my other tutorials, but I'm not going to go over that in this one. So I'm just going to show you how to blend these three images together so you can see how they look. Okay, so once all these images have been loaded into Photoshop, we're going to run this as if we were doing any other ambient flash blend. We're going to take this main image and we're going to just toggle this off for now, so we are dealing with these two images right here. Now, I didn't have to touch my camera at all. Normally you would do like maybe a layer alignment, but I'm not going to bother with that in this one. So I'm just going to click on this first layer right here, create a layer mask, Command I to invert. And again, my favorite tool to use to blend two flash pops together is that gradient tool. And this is another reason why I love using the reflector as opposed to doing a bounce off the ceiling, because a lot of times people will use either an umbrella or a reflector if they can't bounce off the ceiling. And you know what? I think I'm going to start using the reflector, even though it is a little bit more of a burden, maybe, if you will, because you're having to lug around one more thing. But if you notice, when you do a flash pop on the ceiling, you're going to have two big hot spots. And if the room's small, it's going to be tough to keep those hot spots from overlapping. Whereas when you shoot into a reflector and bouncing the light back into the room, you have more even light on the ceiling, and you don't have to worry about those big hot spots. The other reason why I love using the reflector is you get more of an interesting look. You have the shadows coming across how natural light would look. You have windows on the side, you know, so you'll see when I'm done blending this how this is going to look. But so we just need to stay right here in front of that that hot spot, and just going to click and drag somewhere over here, and that's it. Now what we can do is toggle back on this layer, and let's do this. Let's turn this to lighten mode. But let's take and drop that to maybe 50% because we don't need all that. Alright, and that looks pretty good to me. So now what we need to do is actually, let's create a layer mask, but let's not invert it because we're going to clean up that TV right now. We got to make sure our brush tool is selected here. I'm going to get my flow, it's at 6%. I'm going to make my brush a little bigger by clicking that right bracket on my keyboard. I'm just going to paint out my reflection because we're exposing what's underneath. Alright, so that looks good. Now what we need to do is let's click on this so the actual image is selected, and we're going to come down here to create another layer. Now let's come over to our pen tool, and I'm going to Command plus to zoom in here, and we're going to click on all four corners of this TV, and I'll show you how I like to do TV replacements. Okay, once you have all four corners selected, right click and then go to fill path, and then we're going to choose OK because black is typically the default color for that. And then just right click again and then just click delete path, and it'll get rid of those lines. Now Command minus to back out. Now of course that looks fake. What you can do though is just take the opacity and drop it down to maybe like 75%. To me usually looks pretty natural looking. Look at the difference. So pretty amazing there. So let's right click, flatten image, and then Command S to save it and bring it back into Lightroom. And I like to do an interior final bump. It just kind of boosts the contrast. And actually what I'm doing is I like to drop those blacks down. That really helps. I like moving the black slider as opposed to doing contrast, because contrast just starts to brighten the brights too much, and I don't like doing that. We could actually probably tone down this exposure a little bit right here and maybe kick those shadows up a little bit. But there you go. That is a way of lighting a room evenly using that reflector when you have no natural light. So say that you are at a house and it's later in the evening and there's no power to it. That's happened to me before, where I get to a house and they have the power shut off. Well, this is where our ability to be able to light any room is going to give us that feather in our cap, that one up from the HDR shooter or the realtor who's using their iPhone. They're going to have to call you because they need to get listing photos, and they're not going to be able to light the scene with their iPhone. So knowing the flambient method, knowing how to light a room with all different techniques is going to not only give you the peace of mind of being able to light pretty much any house you come across, but it's also going to give you a one-up from, like I said, those others that are doing HDR and the realtors that are just using their iPhone. So leave me a comment if you have any questions about any of this stuff. Hit that subscribe button. Tutorials are coming out all the time. We'll see you in the next video, guys. Bye-bye.